I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
I am prosperous right now. Sometimes things happen and they don't turn out like you think. Does that ever happen to you?
No.
You know, when you reach a certain level, that we all aspire to, I could get down on my knees, but no. Well, I was working on a talk, and I had a lot of passion about this talk initially, and thought that's what Spirit was bringing to me. And Spirit and I wrestled and wrestled and wrestled over that talk. I got it about 3/4 done yesterday and realized Spirit's like, you're trying to make this happen, and I'm not so willing. If you want to be prosperous, you should talk about prosperity. And so I wrote this talk about prosperity. And I thought it was really coincidental that, and maybe nothing really is coincidental, that when I went to look at the Daily Word, when I was creating the slides for today, that the Daily Word was prosperity. Ever notice that sometimes when we open our hearts to a higher plan than our seemingly limited mind can come up with, we can come up with something different? So, creating this talk reminded me of when I was teaching first grade. And we were talking about money, right? And the kids love the money part of it. And we had all these little bitty coins, pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. And I was teaching them how to use different combinations of this money and how to add them up and how to pay for things. And I offered one boy a pencil, and I told him that he could have this pencil for 25 cents. So he gave me 25 cents. And then I said, how else could you pay for this pencil? And he thought for a minute, and he said, MasterCard? His parents were definitely into prosperity. So this lesson is titled, I Am Prosperous Right Now. And this lesson's based on Eric Butterworth's book, Discover the Power Within You. Anybody read this book? This is a phenomenal book of spiritual truth. And Eric Butterworth writes so beautiful. It's like poetry. Wouldn't you agree? Those of you who have read him, he has got such a beautiful way of articulating and explaining things. And I just love this book. And in this chapter titled The Miracle of Abundance, where I grasped some of the truth for this lesson from, he writes, Jesus deals not with the grace or lack of poverty, but with the grace of abundance. His teachings, you must conclude, is that he is saying it's a sin to be rich. But on the contrary, he is strongly implying that it's a sin to be poor. He indicates that if we are experiencing lack, we're not accepting ourselves in the fullness of our deepest relationship with Spirit. The sin is not to know, not to recognize our own divinity. And a sin, by the way, has been misunderstood. Sin actually is a Greek term, an archery term for missing the mark. It just means you shot an arrow at the target and you missed. No big deal. That is what the Greeks called a sin. Time magazine a few years ago had a cover story that asked the question, does God want you to be rich? And there's a number of different opinions from different pastors in this article. And I like what Rick Warren said. He's the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Purpose-Driven Life. Remember that book? Many of us probably read that. He says, this idea that God wants everybody to be wealthy? Baloney. It's creating a false idol. You don't measure your self-worth by your net worth. You know, some ministers teach about God that God in prosperity is that God is the ultimate ATM, you know, and it is this, God is, we just do the right things and God will give us money. I like to think that, and a lot of people think that money is tainted. Taint mine and taint yours. I really don't think that God cares if we're rich or we're poor, right? First of all, I don't believe that God is looking at us with the judgmental eyes to determine if we're rich or if we're poor, because I believe God is the abundance of the universe that is offering itself to us without judgment. And we get to, through our consciousness, open ourselves up to accepting that abundance or limiting our ability to receive it based on our consciousness and what we think and how we act and what we do. The truth of it is, I believe that abundance is your birthright. It's what we live in an absolutely abundant universe. And what we get to do is open ourselves up to receive that abundance. Abundance is everywhere. Abundance is about love. It's about friends. It's about creative ability and expression. It's about peace. It's about joy. It's about being present in the moment and accepting what is. It's about giving and receiving. It's about being part of the universal flow. And it is our birthright. As human beings, we have this phenomenal ability to create and to be one with this creative source. And that's really what we're talking about today, is how can we be one in a deeper and more profound way with this source, so that we can open ourselves to receiving all of the good that's here on this planet for us. Anybody in favor of that? Yeah. So the first thing to understand is that abundance is your birthright. You know, sometimes people think when they talk about Jesus that Jesus was poor and that he walked around and you know, had sloppy clothes. But if you think about it, Scripture says that Jesus wore a seamless gown. And in those days, if you had a seamless gown, you were somebody. Right? You were not poor if you had a seamless gown that was shabbily thrown together. Jesus was prosperous. In fact, they talk about living in an upper room. If you lived in a house that had an upper room, or that Mary had an upper room where they often met, then you were prosperous. He hung out with some prosperous people. And that is the truth of what he taught, is prosperity. Wherever he was, there was prosperity. Remember the story of the disciples were fishing, right? And they're fishing on the left side of the boat and they can't find any fish. And Jesus says, cast your nets on the right side of the boat. And they hauled in all kinds of fish. There's also a story about them finding a coin in the mouth of a fish. So whenever the disciples needed money and prosperity, they always found it. There is not a story in the Bible that talks about them having lack in any way. It's because Jesus knew that abundance is your birthright. It is our birthright. And one way that we can open ourselves to abundance is by affirming that we are abundant. So I have an affirmation that says, all my needs are fulfilled right now. When we know this, when we believe this, this is what we experience. So let's say it together. All my needs are fulfilled right now. When? Right now. In this moment, right now. There's another thing that we can do to open ourselves to prosperity, and that is give thanks for everything that you have. I love this guy. I'm not sure quite what he's eating, but it looks like it's chicken McNugget. No, it's not chicken McNuggets. It might be like a fish sandwich or something, right? But he's like, wow, this is great. Giving thanks for what you have. And for me, this means in your regular life, whatever you are doing, to always be aware of how much prosperity you have. And to give thanks all the time. And to even take a personal inventory as you go through your life and give thanks for this book. Thanks for this music. Thank you for these friends. Thank you for the significant other. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my health. Giving thanks opens our consciousness to receive. The universe hears the vibration, feels the vibration, and says, oh, that's good. You're thankful. You want some more of that? Yeah? Remember the story of the loaves and the fishes? It looked like they didn't have enough fish and bread to feed the 5,000, which interestingly enough was written as 5,000 men and women and children. There was probably 10,000 people. So Jesus takes the loaves and the fishes and he says, thank you for these, knowing that there is enough. They put those loaves and fishes in the basket and they passed them out, and everybody had plenty to eat. All of my needs are fulfilled right now when I give thanks for everything that I have. So in the same way, we can use an affirmation to give thanks for what we have. And let's practice with this by saying it together. I give thanks for everything in my life. Now think of a few things that you're thankful for. And just kind of hold those things. What are some things that are really valuable to you? Just some things that you really love. Even could be a gift that you have to paint or to create. Or for your, like I said before, your significant other, whatever that is. And just hold that. And let's say this together as we hold these people, things, ideas in our minds together. I give thanks for everything in my life. The next thing that we can do to maintain and embellish our prosperity is not to focus on lack. You know, our ego minds want to judge everything so much and say, this is good, this is bad. And I can't do it. Ever said that? I just can't do it. And as soon as we say we can't do it, we can't do it. So we want to eliminate thinking about lack. And just, you know, when you get that picture, just to say stop. I'm moving on to the next slide. I'm moving on to being prosperous, to holding positive ideas that I can do it, that I can be healthy, that I can be loving, that I can be truthful, that I can be creative, that I can be powerful, I can be honest, I can bring forth my gifts. There was a time in my life when I was in sales that I absolutely hated my job. And I could feel that in my body, that it was a struggle to do the work that I did, right? To get up every morning and I made 10 sales calls a day. And I found myself struggling to do that. And I went to a class at the Unity Church where I discovered Unity. And in that class, the minister said this: we don't work in the outer world. We work in our minds. And I thought, what do you mean? And then he went on to say, And you've heard this. When we change our thinking, we change our lives. When we change what we think about, we change what we experience because our experiences come out of our thinking. We tend to think that they're separate, but the truth is what we focus on, what we give attention to, is what manifests itself in our lives. So I decided to change my mind. I decided, you know what I need to do? I said to myself, I need to find something that I really love and do that. And so I got into a theater production, and I love theater. Right? I started doing photography, and I love photography. I started shooting weddings, and I started making more money. And all of a sudden, my job in sales was a lot more interesting to me because it gave me the prosperity to be able to do the things that I loved. And it shifted my whole way of thinking, and interestingly enough, my sales also increased. My energy increased. My connection with people increased. My love for myself and my job increased. When I stopped thinking about lack. So what else can we do? And the next thing that we can do to experience prosperity is to open our minds to new ideas. Eric Butterworth said, what is needed? The ideas, the techniques, the means through which they may be converted into use. When such ideas come into the mind of man, isn't this an evidence of the miracle of abundance? So again, what he's saying is the miracle is not only the availability of supply, but the availability of the ideas through which the supply may be converted into use. What that brings to me is you say your prayers and you move your feet. Right? A lot of people think, I'm going to be prosperous. I'm just going to stay home and I can meditate and I can affirm and yada, yada, yada. Yes, God, I'm healthy, I'm whole, I'm present, I'm making all this money, I'm doing great, money is coming to my door. But they forget the second step. What we need to pray for are the ideas that we can put out so that we can attract through our doing this, that which we desire. The universe likes minds that apply these truths to their lives and participate actively in the abundance by which the supply, which is everywhere in the universe, part of what we have access to, that's desiring to come to us. But oftentimes, we need to tap into the ideas that we can use to bring these things into manifestation. Does that make sense? Two of you. All right. Let's go back to the previous slide to open your minds to new ideas. Okay, I'm not going to do that. So, here's an affirmation I invite you to try to begin this process of opening your mind to experiencing new ideas. Your mind and you have access to an unlimited amount of possibilities. And I know as soon as I say to myself, I want some new ideas, when I realized that this talk I was doing that I had planned on giving wasn't working, I said, okay, God, okay, Spirit, what is it? What is it that I have some energy about, that wants to come through me? And as soon as I got that, it was like prosperity. Eric Butterworth's book. I love this stuff. And it just began to flow, and I created this talk in less time than I procrastinated and stumbled with and fumbled about and was frustrated about with the other talk, which I know is going to be really great, but it's not going to happen today. So thank you, God, for new ideas moving into my mind right now. Do you want some? If you don't, I invite you to go, right? But if you want some new ideas, then I invite you to say this affirmation with me. And let's open it up to new possibilities, yes? Let's say it together. Thank you, God, for new ideas moving into my mind right now. And I know if you say this and you apply this, that this absolutely works, because you have access to everything that you need to open yourself up to experiencing more prosperity in your life. I guarantee it. Who said that? Who made that phrase famous? Maybe nobody knows here. You might have to live in the Bay Area. I'll give $5 to anybody who can tell me who said Amora.
George Zimmer, Men's Warehouse.
Oh, you got it. $5. Come and collect your prosperity. Come. I'm not kidding you. All right, you are prosperous. Woo-hoo! Let's give her a hand.
I want to add to this that George Zimmer, years ago, gave me $5,000 to produce a show at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, and it made it possible for me to get John Gray and Kenny Loggins and Barbara Hubbard and all these people on stage with me. And George launched my career.
All right. Let's hear it for George. I'm sure he'd be very proud to know that he got included in our message today. So another idea, how can we develop prosperity consciousness? And this one, I love this one the most. And that is to embrace how you will feel when you are enjoying abundance. Embrace how you will feel. How will you feel when you're prosperous? What does that feel like? Can you feel that in you? Imagine that for a moment, how that feels. To be prosperous. To be able to travel or to be creative. You know what that feels like because you've experienced it before. The most powerful tool in attracting abundance is that when we feel like we want to feel, when we attract that which we desire to attract. Because our feelings are a huge vibration. And when we are in that feeling, that vibration moves out into our abundant universe, and our universe says, whoa, I'm going to bring you some of that. Yeah? Somebody asked me one time, they said, hey, Rep, how can I find the perfect partner? And I said, well, when you are being the perfect person that person is looking for, they will find you. It's like when you are being that which you desire, you will attract that which is looking for you. Does that make sense? So we want to be these magnetic forces of attraction that attract prosperity to us. Prosperity is kind of out there wandering around, and if you have the right vibration, it goes, you want some of this? Yeah. Here I am. You want some prosperity? Here's some of that. And as we know, everything is consciousness, right? Everything is awareness, is truth, is vibration. And so what we're doing is becoming one with this vibration, and it can't do anything else but be attracted to us. Did you notice I was in harmony a minute ago? That I was buzzing? So the idea is to live in the consciousness of that which you desire. Be that consciousness. If you want to be creative, be in that consciousness of what does it feel like as this vibration is moving through me. How do I feel? And that just turns you on in all creative ways to open yourself to experience that which you desire. I am prosperous, healthy, happy, and living an abundant life right now. And I feel great. Yeah? Do you feel how that changes the whole affirmation? When you add how you feel, I am these things and this is how I feel. Yeah? How's that feel? Okay, let's try it on together. I am prosperous, healthy, happy, and living an abundant life right now, and I feel great. I heard Tony the Tiger there for a second. Great! Didn't he say that? All right, well, I'll give you all $5 later. And the last thing that we can do, not the last ultimately, but the last thing I'm sharing today, is that you share your gifts, skills, and your treasures with the world. You know, this creativeness that we're a part of is like a flowing entity, right? It's moving all of the time. And as long as we are receptive to it and moving with it, then we continue to allow it to experience itself through us. But as soon as we stop it, it stops. So the key to this prosperity and this abundance is to allow it to keep moving through, to give your gifts, to share your skills, to encourage others to do the same thing, and to give of your treasures. If you hang on to your treasures, then they stay right there. And the universe says, oh, you're happy with what you have? Okay, that's great. Then I will support you in holding on to what you have. And my experience of life is anything that you hold on to eventually goes away. Have you ever noticed? It's like, you know, if you want to experience it, leave something outside here for a while. You know, all right, in your lawn, everything returns to the planet. It might take a few thousand years if it's plastic, but everything returns to the allness eventually. And if we're holding on to our gifts, our treasures, our skills, then they kind of stay what they are. Whereas if we're using them, expanding them, moving, letting them move through us, then they expand and greater is given. I am prosperous, healthy, happy, and living an abundant life right now. So take just a moment and I invite you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath and to really feel what it feels like, what it has felt like for you, a time when you really felt prosperous. Maybe it was that time that you got a new relationship, or a time that you created something, painted, crafted, built. Maybe it was a time when you shared your gift with somebody. Maybe you taught somebody how to make something, create something, do something. And take a breath. And again, feel that feeling. And then imagine that you could even turn up that feeling. Almost like you're turning up the volume on this feeling. And allow it to totally consume you. Imagine that this feeling goes from the bottom of your feet all the way up through your body, your arms, your torso, up your neck, your head. Imagine that it is the very energy that is around you. And just embrace this feeling. And give thanks for this feeling. Might even say, I want some more of this. Thank you, Spirit. Breathing in and breathing out. And let's take just a few moments. Just hold this. Breathing in and breathing out. One with the universe. One with all the prosperity that is here in the universe. Here for you to savor. To create. To live. To love. And imagine that you can take this creative energy, this vibration, all these possibilities, and wave them into tomorrow. See yourself there. See yourself creating. See yourself prosperous. See yourself enjoying the abundance of the universe. And cast this thought out into the fullness of your life. Breathing in, breathing out. Gently allowing your awareness to return to this moment.
Where I live, there are raisins